What's up, y'all? Hope everybody's well. Y'all know what it is. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. I have some strange sound in my mic. Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys can hear it or not. Peace to Brother Malika. Peace to Brother Hybrid. Hope you guys are well. Yeah, let me see. No? Yeah. Yeah, I don't like the way that sounds. Anyway. Yeah, so anyway, we're going to get on with it. Beautiful day. Been teaching all day. Been holed up in this office. So I do plan to get out on the bike, do a little riding tonight, get some air. Yeah, your boy is 60 pounds down, all hypertension, all diabetes gone. So I'm feeling good. About to get out here and enjoy it that much more. But I wanted to share something with you that I think is important. I was looking at this whole question of, men's protection and the whole need that people seem to have for men's protection. Although you don't hear the value of it until shit goes sideways. But all of a sudden, when it does, men's protection comes up. And I want to talk to you guys about three different types or three aspects of protection that I think are important and need to be considered as part of this discussion. What's up, Malika? Oh, that's right. I did see you. And Indigo, what's going on? Hope you're good. All right. So, we're going to deal with three. We're going to deal with self-protection. We're going to deal with provisioning, and we're going to deal with guidance. Right. Now, the first one I want to talk about has to do with protection, but it goes a little against how we normally think about it. And usually when we think about men's protections, we think about husbands, fathers, the sacrifices men make for others. And I think it's about time that men learn how to also add themselves to that list. Some of you guys are familiar with the article that just came out today. Actually, hold on. Yeah, today on Brother Snoop Dogg. This you can find in mediate.com. I think that's how you pronounce it. Mediaite.com. I think it might be mediaite.com. I'll put the links for everything I cover tonight, at least as far as the articles, in the description box. And it's entitled Snoop Dogg's Sexual Assault Accuser Drops Suit Entirely Following Allegations of Extortion. Yeah. Now, this is not unlike the case we just saw with Chris Brown, where you have celebrity black men being accused of doing things and then later finding out that there's more to the story and that the accusations don't necessarily reflect the goings-ons. And so these men have actually had to protect themselves. But let's go ahead and check out what was said. The woman who sued Snoop Dogg for sexual assault and battery just days before his Super Bowl appearance has dropped her case. According to court documents obtained by Mediaite, the plaintiff, who brought her case using the pseudonym Jane Doe, informed the court she was dropping the case in its entirety on Wednesday night. This action is dismissed by the plaintiff in its entirety, the filing states. The withdrawal came after the defense filed a motion to dismiss the case on March 24th. The plaintiff had previously sued Snoop Dogg, whose given name is Calvin Broadus, and his associate Bishop Don Magic Juan, for a violation of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. I'm sorry, I had an image of Don Juan in my head. He just makes me laugh. Anyway, she specifically claimed Snoop Dogg and Juan, whose given name is Donald Campbell, had sexually assaulted her following one of the rapper's concerts at Heat Ultra Lounge in Anaheim, California. The suit alleged that Jane Doe accepted a ride home from Juan following the 2013 concert and that she fell asleep in the car, only to wake up at Juan's home instead of her own. She allegedly then fell asleep at Juan's home because she was exhausted and woke up at 4 a.m. the next morning. The complaint alleges that Juan removed his penis from his pants and forced it in the plaintiff's face and repeatedly shoved it into her mouth. Rolling Stone reported that the plaintiff claimed that Snoop Dogg went on to sexually assault her while at his recording studio. Right. Says after a few minutes, defendant Snoop Dogg withdrew his penis from the plaintiff's mouth, visibly unsatisfied with her reluctance and disgust of being forced to engage in oral sex. The complaint alleges the rapper then allegedly proceeded to masturbate and ejaculate on plaintiff's upper chest and lower neck. He then purportedly said, "I'll get you something to clean up with," and left the accuser humiliated, terrified, and panicked in the bathroom without returning. Following initial news of the suit, a spokesperson for Snoop Dogg issued a statement to Mediaite vehemently denying the allegations and accusing the plaintiff of extortion. The allegations by Jane Doe of sexual assault by Calvin Broadus, known as Snoop Dogg, are simply meritless. They appear to be part of a self-enrichment shakedown scheme by Jane Doe to extort Snoop Dogg right before he performs during the Sunday Super Bowl halftime show. Her scheme involved concocting a legal complaint as an anonymous Jane Doe plaintiff and knowing full well it can be a public document, filing this complaint late Wednesday, only 3 days before the Super Bowl. In the complaint, Jane Doe manufactures an occurrence of more than 8 years ago in 2013 for her false allegations. They are similar to what she filed using her own name as the plaintiff in December 2021 with the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. To be clear, Mr. Broadus has never had any sexual encounter whatsoever with her. Her shakedown scheme is disgraceful. Her attempt to use courts to advance the scheme is shameful too, and does a disservice to real victims who deserve to be believed. She was never employed by Snoop Dogg or any of his companies and has furnished no proof to support her claim of employment by Snoop Dogg or his companies. So that's the report. Now, with the Chris Brown situation, we know one of the things we saw is him pulling out evidence based on texts that were sent by his accuser, clearly looking for an opportunity to have more sex, right? But in both cases, both of these celebrity men had to resort to the law. Now, of course, there are going to be accusations of, them using their power and celebrity to intimidate folks and get them to withdraw accusations. And sometimes we're going to be pre-invested in images of, the pious and, pure woman who's forced to withdraw her accusation due to, facing power. There's all, you have all these dynamics. And of course, I think Snoop Dogg is going to end up getting some of that with this, but not so much Chris Brown. And I think what Chris Brown's situation kind of showed us, I think is something that men have experienced or are aware of, but seldom get to see evidence used to clearly point out that you have some people that are willing to take advantage of public sentiment regarding Black men and use it for their own purposes, use it for personal gain. Now, as far as this case is concerned, the thing that gets me about it is the accusation with no evidence. And that can become a powerful tool, especially post Me Too, that costs men their well-being. Now, obviously, these two men are celebrities, so that's a different reality from the day-to-day, everyday man. But what everyday men do realize is these accusations happen to everyday men too, not just celebrities. And if you don't have the means to protect yourself, you don't have the evidence to protect yourself, it's guilty until proven innocent, especially for Black men. So when I talk about protection, I mentioned the first type of protection we need to really engage is self-protection. I think it's an assumption that should be a safe one, that if you have a family, that you protect them as a man. I don't even think that should really be up for discussion. I think how that protection takes place, if you want to hear my thoughts on that, go back to my video, my latest one on Will and Jada, and look at the ways in which, I suggested men protect. And I'm going to go into a little bit of that tonight, but not on Will and Jada, but on a whole nother case. But I think one of the things we need to learn how to do as well is protect ourselves, to actually secure evidence, in a given situation. And men have been talking about this for years. And I think this is yet another case to justify why we need to do so. We don't often protect ourselves. We're raised and socialized to protect others, most particularly women. And if we don't do it, we're shamed for not doing so. So whether a man decides to do it or not, we're well aware of what the social expectation is. Even if we're willing to take the critique for not doing it, men are by and large aware of it. But one of those things, we're never taught to protect ourselves. And I think it's clearly at a point, and Chris Brown's case is I think one of the best ways to go about it, highlights the need to do so. Because right now there's no incentive in place to dissuade women like his accuser from accusing. Much of the time, just like in this article, their names aren't even revealed. Jane Doe, she doesn't lose anything for accusing him. And if we say she falsely accused him, what exactly does she lose for having done so? Is she dealing with any jail time? right? Is she punished in any kind of way? If she's found, guilty of actually, lying about this? No. So her name is in public. She doesn't have to furnish evidence. And if she's caught or was found out that her accusation holds no water, nothing happens. She goes about her way. That's a recipe for danger for any man. I mean, there have been cases in the last 5 years where Uber drivers were accused of rape simply because the woman in the car who was getting a ride was angry. And he luckily managed to get, there's been a couple of them where they managed to get the whole thing recorded, but without that video evidence, some of those men might be in jail. But women are very, acutely aware of the power they have to accuse without evidence and be believed, right? Hashtag believe all women. Remember that? It's dangerous. And as a sexual assault victim myself, I don't say these things lightly. But it is an abuse of power when a whole group of men, especially young men, especially black men, I meant to say, can be held to this idea simply because we're black men. I have a huge issue with that. So the first thing on the agenda, I would argue, is self-protection. Fellas, look out for yourselves. And if there's any way brothers can support one another, do so. And of course, I'm assuming we're innocent. I'm not trying to tell men who are actually out there doing this shit to get away with it. Not at all. But for men who are innocent and are falsely accused, we don't even have a framework for that. We're told not to question women. We're told that false accusations rarely occur. It's a rare occurrence. It doesn't happen. That's what we're told. And yet we require no evidence. And hell, if you're accused on a college campus, you might not even have formal law enforcement involved in the case. You just have a panel of people with a preconceived idea of male guilt who get to decide your punishment simply because you were accused. So men definitely need to engage in more self-protection because nobody else is trying to do it. Right? The second thing we talk about is provisioning. Right? What's up, Micah? What's going on? Freddie Wayne, what's up? Kiel, what's going on? Ghetto User, what's happening? Y'all make sure you like, share, subscribe, join, donate, support the channel. You can see how to do that. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. You know what it is. Patreon. You can become a monthly supporter. Do that on YouTube as well, or just support for the moment, but support the channel, right? But in terms of provisioning, there's a couple of quick things I wanted to kind of go over. This whole question of black men providing, right, which is part of protection. It's one of the three aspects of protection we're talking about tonight: providing, provisioning, taking care of others. And of course, the stereotypes on black men is that they're lazy, they're unwilling to work, they're unemployed. We're not going to look at the fact that they're actually systemically barred. We're not going to look at the fact that the United States would rather take a $50 billion hit for a year rather than hire black men who want work. We're not going to look at the fact that black men have been systemically, left out of employment even when they've sought it out, and then ignored after the pandemic when things got doubly worse. Ignored to such a great degree that the only time we talked about the black community is when we talked about the She Session and how it impacted black women. We're just going to completely ignore homeless black men that were out of work before the pandemic. All of that just goes away. But despite all of that, you guys know in my show we've talked about this. Broken Blade, appreciate that support. Right? Wealthy as a mind frame. What's going on? We talked about this on my show. When we're going through the Bureau of Labor Statistic data from 18 to 65. Black men actually out-earn black women at every level of employment. The only difference is there are fewer black men, thus fewer also in the workforce. But for those that are employed, they actually earn more. So contrary to those kind of stereotypes. The other thing is that black men actually get high school diplomas and GEDs even more than black women. So even though black women are the most celebrated and the most highly enrolled in higher education, black men actually get a higher degree of GEDs and diplomas. It's mostly GEDs, I suspect, and has more to do with the kind of training or the kind of certification men need to get into certain trade-based fields. But it's still not something that's discussed. And black men are not celebrated for having done so. They're actually, instead, what tends to happen is they're socially punished and dismissed for not going to college. But nobody talks about the fact that they actually get more diplomas and GEDs, which is a reflection in many respects of their willingness to work and their choice to do so. if they can find the employment. But for Gen X and Zs, that's what's happening, right? Greater number of diplomas and GEDs. And then the other thing has to do with entrepreneurship. Now, I posted this in my community tab. So if you want to take a closer look at it, you can go ahead and do so. But in my community tab, I'm going to share the same thing. And I think I shared this toward the end of my long stream last night. Some of the data, shout out to Brandon for the Cash App. Some of the data on, oh, that's why, my bad. I decided to post it here. Okay. Just got too many things all over the place. Here we go. So this is an article you can check out on usafacts.org, dated August 13th, 2020. Higher share of Black-owned businesses are women-owned than non-Black businesses. But we're going to just scroll down and we're going to look at the charts. And these are some of the charts that I shared on my community tab here on YouTube, right? And the first one highlights, that non-Hispanic Black women actually have the highest percentage, right, of businesses as far as among women, right? 36% of non-Hispanic Black-owned businesses are owned by women. Women ownership share of business grouped by racial or ethnic identity of owner, 36%, which roughly means that 64% of businesses are run by who? Black men. Y'all tell me, when is the last time you've actually seen an article that highlighted or celebrated Black men actually having a significant number of their own entrepreneurial businesses? When's the last time you guys have ever seen an article on that? What we've seen in the last number of years is a celebration of women, Black women, starting new businesses. They're starting new businesses at the highest rates. And they have the highest rate, they have the highest numbers of businesses out of other groups of women. But Black men actually have 64% of the Black businesses in the Black community. So, like I said, GEDs, high school diplomas, willingness to work, and on top of that, a higher number of entrepreneurial engagements, entrepreneurial ventures. And as some of the brothers are saying, like Malika, never have we seen those articles. Meaning that if there is one, it ain't been circulated well. There is no celebration of Black male achievement. And that's one of the reasons we double down on the data in this space, because otherwise it's just a bunch of feelings and opinions going back and forth. But we rely on the data to make sense of what's going on. So it just doesn't sound like we're just pulling crap out of our behinds, which we're going to get accused of anyway if it goes against the grain of what's supposed to be politically correct and acceptable, which is in many respects in the Black community, female superiority. But what we actually find is that Black men are doing better, far better than people assume, often with no credit. Now, the second chart, oh, damn it, it's not there. Oh, that's right. I got it from another article. Okay, so I'll skip that. We'll go over that another time. But anyway, the point of the matter is that whether we're talking about employment or whether we're talking about entrepreneurship, you have Black men that are priming themselves to be in distinct positions to provision and take care of family. And it's not celebrated. You don't see news reports on it. You don't see celebratory pieces written up in magazines, online magazines at that. You don't see any of that. You don't see a whole number of films coming out celebrating hardworking, everyday Black men. The frequency of representation will give you the idea that because women are represented more, because these channels that do deign to deal with Black issues overwhelmingly cater to women, they don't tell you they do so because women actually consume more media. They do so, they kind of give you the impression that they do so because women are out achieving men. And that's what we're told across the board. And then you guys know the show I did, I think Tuesday night. No, it's not that women are out achieving men. It's that they're out supported by external forces than Black men. And yet, despite the lack of support, Black men are actually still doing better. So in terms of provisioning, the second form of protection, whether it has to do with employment or entrepreneurship, Black men don't get received. And here's something else I want to share with you, especially in terms of entrepreneurship. Right. This is data that comes from the U.S. Census Bureau, 2007 and 2017. 2007 and 2012, from a survey of business owners. And this is the first chart. and I'll enlarge it. Might have to enlarge all of these for you for a moment. Table 4, average annual pay per employee for firms with employees by race or Hispanic ethnicity and gender, 2007 to 2012. What does this mean? Well, you can see black men at the top of the list. And these basically what that refers to are black male run companies and how much they pay their employees. Black men actually pay their employees more. And the percentage change from 07 to 2012 was higher than any other group. In other words, they paid them more, but they increased the amount of pay to the greatest degree. That's what it was from 2007 to 2012. They increased the pay for their employees, right? White women came in second in terms of paying more, but actually dropped how much they were paying by 2012. White men dropped how much they were paying. Black men were the only group to increase what they paid their employees, and we're paying them a fairly competitive wage, right? But that's black male companies. And again, when we talk about entrepreneurship, one of the things we got to talk about is, for the most part, black folk have no capital. We don't have inheritance, which is the primary transfer of wealth from previous generations to the next. And yet you have black men paying their employees more. This particular chart, average annual sales for firms with paid employees by race and Hispanic ethnicity and gender. Again, 2007 and 2012, black men actually had the second highest rate of annual sales. Percentage change 3.9%. So in other words, the increase in annual sales, second highest. Right. What's up, Child of Light? How you doing? Sower of Seed, Donnie, what's going on? Hope you guys are well. Right. This particular chart, and this is all coming from the Center of Global Policy Solutions, right? Change in number of business owners with paid employees by race and Hispanic ethnicity and gender. Right? Change in number of business owners. Black men are at the bottom of the list. According to this, from 2007 to 2012, they lost businesses. So they're actually increasing their pay to the greatest extent. They're the second highest earners in terms of increased earnings between 2007 and 2012, yet they were losing businesses more than any other group. And again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about no capital, right? Building businesses from nothing. What's the next chart? This is the same data presented a little differently. Percentage change in the number of firms and in the labor force, right? So you can see on the far right, black men, right, lost the number of firms more than any other group. And you can see the increase in those changing into the labor force. So what it looks like here is they were losing businesses and transferring into the labor force. And much of this is likely due to limited capital. All right, Brother Damon, appreciate that support. Hope you're well. All right. And then this one deals with share firms with and without employees, right? And so what you can see here is on the far right, right? You can't see the yellow at the top, or I guess it's kind of orange. Percentage of firms with employees, and then the kind of darker orange, kind of blood orange color, percentage of firms without employees. So on the far right, in terms of black women, 2.5% of their entrepreneurial engagements have employees. 97.5% do not. For black men, it's a ratio of 6 to 94. So 6% of their businesses do, 94% don't. Much of this, again, has to do with capital. But my reason for pointing these things out is that black men are trying to be competitive despite a lack of wealth, despite a lack of capital, despite a lack of support, despite a lack of loan access for business solutions. And yet they're competitive, or at least attempting to do so. And it is what it is. But again, that speaks to provisioning, the willingness to go out of their way and to actually try and pay people a fair wage based on the environment that they're in, even when they don't have much to begin with. Now, for this last part, I'm going to transfer into a different type of protection. Let's see if I can get some of this crap off the screen. I hate all these advertisements. I won't let it go away. All right. So this one comes out of an article. Some of you guys may have seen on Atlantic Black Star. Came on April 3rd, right after the whole, you know, Will, Chris, Jada dynamic. And what it deals with is what I consider to be a different type of protection. Right? This is what I call men's relationship emotional labor. You know, the role men play as providing different types of emotional labor. And I think one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful form of emotional labor that men can perform is guidance. What do I mean? What do I mean? Well, let's check it out. So the article is entitled, "What We Don't Want to See is Angela Bassett Slapping." Courtney B. Vance recalls how he kept Angela Bassett from reacting to women who cussed them out at airport amid Will Smith and Chris Rock drama. Actress Angela Bassett is one of the most refined actresses in Hollywood, usually moving above reproach and never associated with drama. However, a lot of that has to do with her husband of almost a quarter century, Courtney B. Vance. During an interview with The Breakfast Club, Vance shared about picking and choosing the times to check people for violating loved ones while explaining how he understands protecting his family. He unpacked the need for discretion and wisdom in letting people know they better not. That's a picture of them right there. I can say I've liked Courtney in a lot of the roles I've seen him play. Brilliant actor as far as I'm concerned. You know, Angela Bassett, timeless beauty. It is what it is. So it reads, one example he gave was how he had to stop his wife from slapping a woman at the airport. Right? The Tony winner, who met his wife on a theater production in 1980, said the woman was provoking Angela Bassett, and he wasn't about to let that become a TMZ moment. He spoke about a time when a woman approached them while they were leaving the airport and made a stop to pick up their luggage. Vance said he told the woman it was an inappropriate time to get an autograph or a picture. The preacher's wife, actor, rationalized, if you recognize us, then TMZ will, and it would turn into something bigger. Vance said he asked her to please give them space. The woman responded, he interrupted her and said, it's not the appropriate time. When the husband stopped the woman from talking to his wife, he says the fan continued to follow them and yelled at the "What's Love Got to Do with It" star. She was cussing, trying to provoke her. I said, Angie, just keep walking, baby. We're going to our car. Just keep walking. Vance says while telling the story to DJ Envy and Charlamagne the God. Then the fan, said, I never liked your movies anywhere. Now that sounds like black folk. But anyway, just saying. Vance remembers he kept telling his wife not to turn around because there was more for them to lose had anyone responded. You have to understand the situation and be able to sometimes know when it's time to step up and say, don't you dare. And sometimes you just got to walk away. He said the airport story has now become folklore for their family to laugh about years later, jokingly calling the woman in the airport a hussy. Vance and Bassett are the parents of 15-year-old twins, Bronwyn and Slater Vance. The story not only makes the family laugh, but made the Breakfast Club host chuckle also. Vance said it was right to tell his wife to keep walking despite her wanting to clap back because it could have been a problem. What we don't want to see is Angela Bassett pimp slapping anyone, which was the reaction he believes the woman wanted. You ain't getting that. We're not going out like that. We work too hard for an incident that's just going to be folklore in our mind. He talked to the host about how one event could impact one's entire life, shifting the conversation to the recent Will Smith, Chris Rock Oscars incident. In that instance with Will, he said, that's the situation where you go. It's good, Chris. I'll talk to him later. And you let him know, don't you ever, as long as you black, put your mouth around my wife like that. That's between you and me. Vance believed the confrontation could have been private, so no one else would have known. In that secluded environment, the 62-year-old says he wishes Will would have said, I love you and I know you love me, but don't you ever disrespect our family again like that. The question arose asking, but what if he did it again? A possibility, since this is the second time Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith, the Oscars winner's wife, on the stage at the ceremony for the Academy Award. The OG said, then in life, we don't deal with them. In terms of our circle, Vance said, to keep the peace, I don't have to be around them. At the 2022 Oscars, after Rock made a joke, we all know the situation there. I don't need to rehash it. And then it goes into a little bit of Will Smith. But so my thing is that what Courtney B. Vance is talking about is a type of emotional labor, probably the greatest type. And that emotional labor has always been for men a form of protection. In many instances, we attempt to protect the ones we love, even from themselves. And this is what he demonstrated here. He guided his wife in the midst of a contentious moment that could have blew up. Could have affected both of them. Could have had all kind of ramifications. He guided her. And that's one of the things I wanted to highlight here as the third and most important aspect of protection in tonight's show. Right? The value of men in a position to guide as a form of protection and emotional labor. This is what Courtney demonstrated tonight. Now, I'm not opposed to different types of relationships. Hey, look, I don't judge in terms of, who's in a position of leadership and who isn't. I don't care. But I do speak up for men who do want and have trained themselves to actually be in a position of leadership in a relationship where they are willing to protect and guide those that they're with, whoever they choose that person to be. See, in this environment, we're told that everything is everything and people should be able to do whatever, which generally means that heterosexual men should shut up and no, I don't play that. If that's the kind of relationship people want to be involved in, great, do your thing. But for men who actually don't mind being in a position of leadership and own the responsibility of what that means, even when it comes to emotional protection and the willingness to put yourself in that position, because that's something people don't understand. Being in a position of leadership in a relationship is a responsibility. It takes effort. It takes sacrifice. People look at it like, kind of like this idea of the king kicking his feet up and everybody servicing him. That's a dictator, but that's not what a king does. A king is about service. And I'm not one to use these royalty freaking terms anyway, but it's not about that. Leadership is about service. And the fathers and husbands that lead serve their families by protecting them, even when it means making decisions that others may not like or not understand. But the cost of that willingness to lead and protect and guide is respect. Respect and the basic assumption that if this person you chose and you're willing to take on as someone who's willing to protect you and lead you, if you can give him the faith in him to do that job and let him lead, that's a form of protection, the highest form. That's what Courtney B. Now, the situation wasn't as extreme as other cases. We hear about cases where people start shooting and fighting, and it doesn't have to get to that point to be protection. See, he saw the big picture in the moment. He understood how one case in an airport parking lot could have turned into something completely different. And he guided. And that is incredibly important. And absolutely, Tahuti, that is a form of sacred Black masculine. Absolutely. Leadership. And I'm not saying anybody's perfect. I'm not saying that everybody can just throw a cape on and that's not what this is about. We're talking about real everyday people who are doing what they can to advocate for those that they, take charge of protecting in their circle. And this is what Vance did. He owned his position in the family as protector. And notice what the story, in terms of how he told the story, notice what Angela Bassett's reaction was. Did she argue with him? Did she fight with him? Did she say, nigga, don't tell me anything. You can't. Now, 10 years later, situation is a joke, something they laugh about. But that had as much to do with his willingness to be in a position of service and protection as it does with her willingness to cooperate. And the balance between the two, gold. That's really what we're talking about here, gold. So again, emotional labor on behalf of men is a form of protection. And and I think the highest form of that protection is guidance, especially for the men who are willing to choose that level of responsibility and to lead with what I would call an enlightened form of logic. It's not led by emotion. It's not led by a whimsical feeling here and there. You lead by logic. And what do I mean by enlightened logic? It's logic led by love. But love, we define as this emotional shit, flowers and candy and no, it don't have nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. It has to do with making sure that we're doing our best to lead to the best outcome for our families. What is the best outcome? I love my son. I love my son. How do I express that love? I try to figure out how to get him to the best outcome for him. Ultimately, so he can stand on his own 2 feet as a man. Learn what that feeling is and make sure he can provide that type of protection to those he chooses to pull into his circle. It's the best thing I can pass on to him, is the wisdom and the strength of a man. But that's the type of love we guide with. I don't treat him based on how I feel at a moment-to-moment basis. That's not the basis of how I rationalize dealing with my son. I make the decisions based on what is the outcome I want. That's what I consider enlightened logic. That's what I consider logic guided by love. What's the outcome we want for everybody? That's what Courtney Vance did at the end of that session, in that situation. What was the outcome? Get out of the scenario, not have TMZ up in their business, and get home. And what they had to endure was a fan who was a bit of an ass. As long as they didn't put hands on them, they went their own way. And now the situation's a joke. And this is the type of guidance that the brothers that I deal with, this is what we challenge each other to provide. But challenge not in a competitive sense. It doesn't have to be that. Challenge in terms of being a resource to one another and helping us improve how we go about doing what we do. But here's the other thing to this. We are very particular who we pull into our circle. Men have to understand that their emotional labor is their most powerful gift. And if you invite the wrong person into it, the person who wants to take advantage of it, exploit it for whatever egotistical reasons, you may find yourself in a jacked up position, like a certain celebrity from last week. You have to own the value of your emotional labor. And the most powerful aspect of that labor is guidance. You don't give it to anybody willy-nilly. You pick and choose when to share it. And if you're going to commit it to a certain group of people, they have to understand the power of that charge, the willingness to do that. See, I've withdrawn my emotional labor from people the moment that I can tell it's not respected. And I have no problem doing so. Just like a store, when they leave a sign on the wall that says they withhold the right to deny service, then you damn right. But if you're going to commit it to someone, whether it's through marriage or through a vow that you make, whatever that is, or through your children, whoever you commit that charge to, take it as seriously as the most solemn promise and lead with that enlightened logic. What is the best outcome we're looking for in the situation? Not what our moment-to-moment feelings are. No, what's the best outcome? If I only protected you when I like you, if you're in my circle, then that ain't protection. I may not be in the mood. I may be tired. You may not have done something I needed you to do. I can't base the most powerful aspect of who I am that I can give to someone else on momentary mood. No, it's a decision. And if you've earned that decision from me, as long as you can make a commitment to honor it, I'll make a commitment to provide it. But you also have to trust. And if you're unwilling to be led, we don't have to part with hostility, but we do have to part. I had an ex I remember talking to once. This is before we broke up. We were having a conversation and she actually called me to ask me to explain something that I wrote. I literally got out 2 words before she started screaming at me. And what she screamed was, so mind you, remember, she called me because she said, I read something you wrote. I didn't understand it. I wanted you to explain it before I just assumed. And I said, okay. Actually, I didn't say okay. I thought, okay. And then I said, in the 1980s, that's 3 words, right? That's all I said. I was starting to explain what I wrote. And she said, Nikki, you can't teach me nothing. I said, okay. You called to ask me a question, but your pride is such that you can't listen to a black male teach you anything. The phrase she said was, nigga, you can't teach me nothing. So it was clearly, very direct about me. And I was like, okay, well, no animosity. I see you around. Wait. What do you mean? What? No. It's not even about disrespect at that point, even though it is, but it's more to do with the fact that you're incapable of taking guidance, even when you ask for it. And I reserve the right to withdraw my emotional labor. And I will only provide it to someone that honors it and understands its value and will reciprocate it with respect. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to get across. This thing we call men's protection is very nuanced, has a lot of levels to it, a lot of aspects to it. But the three I was talking about tonight are self-protection, provisioning, and guidance. Men need to actually learn how to provide, to take that most powerful gift they have and actually give it to themselves. Because we don't. Men need to understand the value of their employment and their entrepreneurship, their willingness to take risks, their willingness to go out into the world and force it to conform to an outcome that benefits a man and who he's with. And we need to know how to defend what we do by knowing the data around how much we do it. Because if we leave it to everyone else's stereotypes, we don't do none of it. And that's bullshit. So that's the second thing. But the third is guidance. Brothers, be logical. Always think about the outcome that's desired. Choose strategically how to sacrifice your energies for those you love, or if you choose to do it at all, it's entirely up to you. Maintain the willingness to withdraw it if you find you're not respected, especially if you've done enough to deserve that. You know, that's a whole nother conversation. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. All right. So I hope you guys are well. What's up, Todd? Hope you're good. Yeah. Anyway, 224 watching. I appreciate the time. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will. And y'all will see me soon, especially since my spring break just started 3:15 today. As I said, I'm about to go get a little bike ride in, celebrate this improving health. I got 2 major health issues off my plate. Now I just got 2 minor ones. And I can live with that. Anyway, hope you guys are well. Y'all have a good night. I look forward to reading the comments, checking out what y'all have to say. Peace.